welcome to another episode of the Cinema Scoop podcast with Sam and Jordan.
I'm Jordan.
And today we have a special guest, my brother John.
Hello.
And we are going to do an A24 draft where each of us will have 8 picks, totaling 24 movies that A24 has produced or distributed or potentially re-released.
Anything A24.
This is going to be released close to when Civil War, the Alex Garland movie, has come out that me and John has just saw. So that could be potentially a pick in this draft. But yeah, we will do a random generator to see the order. There's not going to be any categories. It's just pick which movies you want. We'll each have 8 films. And yeah, we'll do the snake draft. So the last pick in the first round will have the first pick in the second round. So, and the randomized order is Sam has the first pick, Jordan the second pick, John the third pick.
I think it's rigged. You found this.
This is rough.
Oh.
Yeah, I was not expecting the first pick because now that means I have that means I have the first and 6th and 7th pick. So
Honestly, I would rather not have gone first if I was first, 6th, and 7th. So
yeah, and we're gonna pick 24 movies. So we're gonna try to talk maybe less than 2 minutes each on each movie. We're gonna kind of go a little quick just so it's not too long. But does anybody have questions? Or are we ready to go?
ready to play? I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. So with the first pick in the A24 draft, I have to pick After Sun,
I knew it.
Okay.
which came out 2 years ago, directed by Charlotte Wells. Paul Mescal plays a father, and one of the more emotional movies, visceral, the way it's shot, and their overall story is very heartwarming but heartbreaking. And I know, obviously, Jordan, you've seen this. Have you seen After Sun?
I have not seen.
Okay,
After Sun.
so
It's a must-see.
yes,
Okay.
it's so very quick. It's Paul Mescal is like in his late 30s, or I think or maybe he just turned 30 something, and he has like an 11-year-old daughter, and he's basically broken up with the mom, and so this is kind of like the vacation for them, and it's set in the 90s, and the present day daughter, who's much older, is watching a recorded version of what we're actually watching on her old 90s camcorder that her dad had, played by Paul Mescal. And that's kind of all I'll say, because if you haven't seen it, it's pretty heartbreaking, but just it's pretty amazing how it's shot. And Paul Mescal was nominated for Best Actor. So I really recommend After Sun, and I had to pick it number 1.
A lot of A24 movies make me cry, but this one, I was not well. I was like sobbing. I was like, I need a minute. Like,
Yeah, definitely the ending with the Under Pressure song.
every time I hear that song is so happy, but every time I hear it now, I start to get emotional. It's ruined the song for me in like the best way.
All right, so now Jordan has the second pick. So what is your pick?
I feel like this is also not surprising choice for me either. Just like I kind of knew you'd pick After Sun. You probably knew I would pick Swiss Army Man. I've talked about this on the podcast a little bit already, just being that like it's one of my favorite weird movies. I love how heartwarming it is. It's pretty quintessential A24 like coming of age type shtick, but I also think like if you liked Everything Everywhere, like you should definitely see this if you haven't, because it's kind of in the same vein of being like gives you a zest for life again, makes you feel happy to be alive. But I mean, the general premise is that, you know, Paul Dano is going to kill himself and Daniel Radcliffe is a dead body powered by farts, and he's a Swiss Army man who can do anything, provide you with water, be a motorboat for you to like get across water. But Paul Dano kind of has to like teach him like what it is to be a human, and it's nice seeing it from that perspective. And yeah, I really like it.
Have you seen Swiss Army Man?
I have seen Swiss Army Man. Have you seen Broom Shakalaka?
No,
No.
but now I have to watch that.
Broom Shakalaka was one of the Daniels, the director's like first thing that they've ever like directed. It was a part of like Cartoon Network had this weird like 12 a.m. slot where they basically gave people creative freedom to do whatever for 10 minutes called infomercials. And so it's a 10 minutes infomercial for this product called the Broom Shakalaka that can just do like anything. And it is fantastic. I highly recommend it.
So is it like a short, basically?
Pretty much.
Like a 10-minute short.
Okay.
Okay.
I will definitely watch that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Swiss Army Man. Yeah, when we first saw it, I knew it was like really, really good, and I really like the acapella songs that they do.
The
Yeah.
Jurassic Park theme.
Yeah, that one.
Yes. I just like how at the end, like they're all upset because they think that the dead body farted, and then Paul Dano was like, "No, it was me." And like it's just like so weird. Like it strikes the perfect note of being like a weird ass movie that I love. So
And it's like quintessentially 24.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
good
for
pick.
sure.
All right, John, you got the third pick and the fourth pick, so back to back.
All right. First pick I'm going to do, right out of the gates, Lady Bird by Greta Gerwig.
Classic.
2017. A fantastic movie. Kind of my introduction to Greta Gerwig, who I just immediately was like, I like whatever she's doing. I'm all in. And it's a beautiful movie of just growing up. Saoirse Ronan is phenomenal in it. The script's fantastic. And it's just like a weirdly like feel good movie. It's kind of comforting just to see them like go about like grow up and like all the meandering things that they do. So really, really enjoy it.
That was definitely my next pick.
I was thinking that might have been I was thinking there's a few
Not
that,
holding back.
Yeah.
This is cutthroat.
we're taking from people, but
I love Lady Bird. I've seen it several times now. And it's one that will make me cry every time I see it. And it's just specifically the part where they're like trying on dresses and the mom's just like, I just want you to be the best version of yourself. And she's like, what if this is the best version of myself? Like gets me every time. Like love that.
yeah, I was thinking of the other Greta Gerwig movie, Frances Ha, which is not A24. That's another good dialogue.
Masterpiece.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love that movie.
Okay, what's your next pick, John?
Next pick. I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Midsommar.
Oh,
This is not a
That
good
would've-
movie.
that would-
I am.
That would have been my second pick.
yeah.
Midsommar.
Shout out Florence Pugh.
Absolutely. This is Ari Aster's second movie. Came out 2019. I think maybe one of my favorites of his. I really love. I mean, it's incredibly scary, but what he does that not a lot of horror movies does is that it's all in the daytime, and you like see
Yes.
everything, and it's just this insane group of people, like this cult that's placing like our protagonist like outside of that, and then having her like slowly become like assimilated to the group. Really scary, beautifully shot, wonderfully acted. That's gonna be my second pick.
Like disturbing.
Oh
too.
yes.
Yeah, it's one of the more unique horror movies that have come out recently because, you know, so many horror movies from the 2010s and even the 2000s were like haunted house or supernatural or, you know, there was that post-Saw time frame where they did a lot of torture porn types movies.
Or just possession.
But this was like, no, we're doing it in the day. Everyone's going to be high. And It's just crazy things that just keep happening.
And talking about disturbing, like the first 2 minutes, one of the most disturbing opening scenes I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It is horrifying.
I feel like this is also what, like, maybe I'm wrong. Check my facts, but like this is kind of what like put Florence Pugh like in the center of like, oh, she's a big deal. Like that was
This was kind of her breakout.
That would track, yeah.
I think I'm right.
I think she was in. I think this and Little Woman came out at the same time, the same year. So those were kind of her. Those were her two big movies that year. Okay, so now it is Jordan's turn again. What is your next pick?
I feel like there's so many that are equally tied for this like third spot in my mind, but if I had to pick one for number 3, I would prioritize Moonlight. And it's just like a movie that holds up. I've seen it a couple of times now. It's very, very simple. It's told in 3 acts. It's about one person's life. It's 3 different main actors that play one character. And so the continuity really holds up well, though, just because the acting quality is so good that you really feel like it's the same person. Like, that's kind of hard to achieve. But it's also like another quintessentially heartbreaking type of movie. But yeah, I rewatched it, I think maybe a year or so ago. And I was just like, oh man, I forgot how much I liked this. And like the final act of the movie and the final shot of the movie is just like, it's so good. And I can't remember her name. The mom.
Naomi Harris.
Yes.
Mahershala Ali.
Both
on.
Just incredible. Like the cast of it's just so hyper real. And I feel like A24 also has they're very known for like heartbreaking, coming of age, weird, but also like hyper realistic situations that are like almost like gritty, grimy, but like romanticized in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like they have a lot of like slice of life type of movies.
Yeah.
Like Lady Bird is another one where it's like follow this character as they grow up. But yeah, Moonlight, they have the 3 different actors and it's a longer story, but
I also think it's funny that most people know Moonlight because of the Oscar thing. And I really hate that because I wish that it wasn't known for that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised you didn't pick another movie that won Best Picture that has not been selected yet.
I mean, it's on my list, obviously, but
yeah. So now I've got back-to-back picks, and it's very difficult to not pick the Best Picture winner. But I feel like you should potentially have the opportunity to draft that one on your next pick.
I mean, someone's out for blood over here. We'll see if I get there.
So I don't know the exact number because I know A24's had a few that have come out this year. But I have like 70 films basically that are selectable here. But ultimately I think for both of my picks, I'm going under the Skin and then Under the Silver Lake.
Oh.
Just as a back-to-back play on words. So me and Jordan watched Under the Skin recently. I've seen it before. Jordan watched it for the first time. Scarlett Johansson.
I'm just thinking about how halfway through I was like, we need to pause. I'm freaking out right now. Like, this is scaring me. Like,
yeah, she couldn't. I prefaced part of it that there's this kind of like semi-benign but like kind of terrifying scene at the ocean or at the beach. And that was where you're like, let's kind of pause it for a minute.
I was like, I need to watch something that's going to make me happy I mean, I'll be clear. I loved the movie, but it was one that I was like, okay. I think it was just because it's like, there's a baby.
Yeah.
We're not going to give anything away.
Yeah. So yeah, this is Jonathan Glazer. It's the basic premise of Scarlett Johansson is under human skin as a different species that you don't want to spoil necessarily, but ultimately she's trying to lure men into her lair for reasons unknown, and it's one of those movies that you're not going to have everything answered for you, but you kind of can understand it as it's happening. Great visuals, great soundscape, and all the type of things they do. Have you seen Under the Skin?
I saw it many years ago, and it's one of those things where like he doesn't do all like the traditional like horror like setups like with the camera, but he still like gives you like all the disturbing visuals, so you were kind of just left not really knowing like what's going to happen next and how it's going to happen. And it's a very weird headspace to be in for a movie.
Now you know why I paused it.
Yeah.
I was like, this makes me feel like I have like terrible vibes right now. Like it was late at night too, so I was just like getting spooked. Like
it's just kind of spooky.
The music.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I say it gets under your skin.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm surprised you picked Under the Silver Lake next, but I'm happy you did because I love that.
Well, yeah, segueing to Under the Silver Lake, sadly, Under the Tuscan Sun is not A24 and will not be picked.
The trilogy.
Yes, but Under the Silver Lake is the Andrew Garfield starring, I think it's from 2018, directed by David Robert Mitchell. And yeah, basically, Andrew Garfield is just a dude living by himself in an apartment, and he's in LA, and he slowly gets into like a mystery, conspiracy, almost like a modern noir, where there's secrets under the Silver Lake he has to discover and figure out, and he's ultimately trying to find a girl. But it's just it's really well done as far as like the progression of the story, because you're ultimately trying to understand, is Andrew Garfield psycho, or is he just a conspiracy nut, or is he just love struck, or is he just walking around LA trying to figure things out? And it's one of the few movies that A24 has done that's kind of like that, where it's like we've said, most of these movies, or a lot of these movies, are one or two character driven slices of life, whereas Under the Silver Lake is kind of like, is Andrew Garfield like going insane? Is he discovering an actual interesting mystery? But you saw it with me.
I like it because it's exactly what you said, where it's like you can't really tell if there's actually a mystery going on or if Andrew Garfield is just a nutcase and he's just seeing things, or he's just like reading too much into like what's going on. But there's like a part of you that kind of is rooting for him, but he's also just like kind of a terrible person and like low life kind of guy. And like I like that whenever you're watching a movie and like the main character is not necessarily incredibly likable. But I'm also like just a sucker for the neo-noir genre as a whole. So yeah, great movie.
All right, Jordan, your pick.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. I'm going to pick Everything Everywhere all at once. Yeah. It easily could have gone to two other movies, but I'll put this one here just because it's like I only have so many 5 out of 5 star A24 movies, and this is one of like, there's a couple more left that I have. But I watched this the first time and I felt like I wasn't smart enough to fully understand what was going on. And then I watched it again and felt like, oh, okay, I'm not supposed to totally understand like all of the lore and like how everything works for it to work. And like I just sort of like was able to suspend disbelief a little bit more and just like get lost in what's going on. And I think I enjoyed it a lot more the second time. Also, candidly, the first time I saw it was Sam, and the second time I saw it was with my mom. And who better to watch this movie with than your mom?
Yeah.
Like it's a perfect like mom-daughter movie. And we were both just like crying by the end of it, and it was perfect. So it's just like a beautiful memory. And my mom loved it, which is cool. Like, you know, it's great when you show your mom a movie and your mom's like, I love this. And like, It's great when you show anybody a movie and they love it, but it's even better when you create like a really nice memory with someone that you're like, I know you're gonna like this, and like, I don't know, I just love that, and especially with like the subject matter, and like, I like that it's a lot about like just breaking generational like expectations, and like there's a lot that like Michelle Yeoh is having to like kind of break free of like her father's expectations of her, and there's a lot that the daughter is having to break free of her mother's expectations from her. I mean, it swept the Oscars for a very good reason.
Yeah.
It's truly a movie that I would tell any human on earth to watch. Like, everybody should see it. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah. So you got both Best Picture winners and both Daniel's movies. So you're off to a good start, I would say.
Yay!
Yeah, I would have probably picked this one, but I wanted to do the double under movies because I'm a weirdo. But anyway, yeah, there's not much to say else about that one. It's obviously really good.
I think the best joke in movies that year was Ratatouille.
Yeah, yes.
It's
Yes.
perfect. They knock it out of the park. Very, very funny.
So good. It's such a funny movie.
It is very
Yes,
funny.
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't take itself too seriously. I really like the grandfather character. He's really funny. And the whole thing with the googly eyes.
Yeah.
And they were able to make the everything bagel thing make sense, but it's also funny and obviously a play on words. But good choice. Okay, John, 2 picks for you.
All right. For my next 2, first up, I'm gonna do First Reformed by Paul Schrader. 2017, we have Ethan Hawke as Amanda Seyfried, a really great Cedric the Entertainer.
Oh.
Weird, like, very grounded Cedric the Entertainer. He's like really acting like very, very well. As well as like Ethan Hawke and Amanda Seyfried. Great acting all around. Yeah, that was like my first Paul Schrader movie, and was really, really into it. It's about this like priest who kind of has this idea that there's going to be this climate kind of apocalypse and whatnot, and he meets Amanda Seyfried, and he basically reverts. Well, I guess I shouldn't spoil it, but shenanigans happen. But really like well written movie, well acted movie. I highly recommend.
Yeah, it's definitely Ethan Hawke's one of his best performances, especially in later movies. I know you really like Before Sunrise. I do too. This is like definitely top 3 or 4 of his performances. Just the way the things his character has to morally come to terms with and spiritually, and it's just a really good movie about faith and like what you actually believe based on how you can live your life. And
I haven't seen it yet.
yeah, it was on your watch list, so we'll have to watch it soon. But yeah, it's a really good pick, John.
Yeah. And for my next pick, continuing with the acting as well as the Greta Gerwig, I'm gonna pick 20th Century Women.
Another one I haven't seen.
It's a movie that like the acting just like comes across as like so naturalistic, and the camera work is like really fantastic. It's basically about like the director like talking about essentially like his own life and growing up in like the 70s in I think California, somewhere in California. But Greta Gerwig, Billy Crudup, Annette Bening, is it Dakota Fanning? Elle Fanning. Really, really fantastic. Like it's kind of similar to like Lady Bird. It's like another like just good vibes movie. I think.
Slice of life.
Yeah, slice of life. Kid kind of growing up, making mistakes, figuring things out. And I like that it doesn't like end in like a definitive moment. It's kind of similar with Lady Bird, but there is like a an idea that things are going to be all right. That's they're going to make mistakes in the future, but they're still going to keep going.
Yeah, I've seen this a few years ago. Yeah, I really like Annette Bening's performance as the mom. I think she's very grounded and understanding that her kids are growing up, or I guess it's just her son, and then because Greta Gerwig is like a friend of the family, I think, right? Or is she the?
Yeah,
I forget. Yeah,
I think she
'Cause
lives in the house.
yeah, I think she just lives there. Yeah, because she takes. It's not Timothy Chalamet, but it's a kid who looks kind of like Timothy Chalamet
Yeah.
in that time frame. Lucas Jade Zuman. I think he's younger, but he hasn't really been in a lot of other stuff. But yeah, I just remember Greta Gerwig like takes him to like a punk concert, and he skateboards a lot.
Yeah, that's it.
but for being like a single mom in 1979, she's very like chill for the time. But
Do you feel like Annette Bening should have been nominated for this role over the role that she got nominated for this last Oscar season?
For Naiad?
yeah, this is a better
Better than
performance.
Naiad? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Less
Yeah.
water than Naiad.
Yeah, not enough ocean water.
Not enough jellyfish.
All right, so we're almost halfway done, and now it's Jordan's fourth selection.
This is really hard because there are two that are very equally tied in my mind. And one of them I saw for the first time last night, and the other one has been a favorite of mine for a while. So I'm going to go with the one that I watched last night because it's fresh on my mind, and I want to make sure that it gets in here because it might not. And it's the Safdie brothers' Good Time with Robert Pattinson. And holy shit, like I just was not anticipating liking this movie as
It's
much.
very good.
I was not anticipating liking it as much as
Did
I
you have a good time?
I had a good time, but an anxious time watching this movie. Like, it's been... I've seen a lot of movies, and this might sound really, really, like, basic, but I haven't seen a movie that has just driven forward to the point where I'm just kind of, like, gripping my seat since Taken. Like, I the first time you see Taken, you know what I'm talking about. You're like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Like, Good Time was like that for me, but mix in, like, very, very quintessential A24 visuals. So it's, like, black lights and neon blue and pink lights and purple lights and, like, just, like, seedy underbelly of, like, trashy lifestyle and, like, lots of, like, kind of like disgusting drug use mixed with like crime, mixed with like an amusement park that's closed, mixed with like just...
Yeah, it makes you feel dirty
Yes. Like...
just watching it because you're like, it's like oozing grittiness almost.
Yes.
Like with every little scene because like the scenes build on top of each other basically.
Yeah. And like it's incredible, just like there was one specific scene that like, and this doesn't give anything away, but like there's a specific scene where it's Jennifer Jason Leigh, Robert Pattinson are at a bail bonds office, and like every single person in the room is on the phone yelling at someone because they got to move funds from this place and the card's not working, and then it's about the judge is about to go to sleep and go to dinner and they need to get his brother out of jail, and like there was just like all this like chaotic like energy going on that I was like, oh my God, like this is just so well done. And Robert Pattinson, like obviously I'm a huge fan, but like this just really,
it might be his best performance.
It might be one of his best performances.
Also a huge comeback from him of kind of like, they kind of marks this transition from like doing blockbusters to where he is now, where he's like picking and choosing interesting directors, some indie projects.
Totally.
Yeah, there's another one on the list of Robert Pattinson that might get selected, but there's also another Safdie brothers movie that might get selected. There's a lot of...
Yeah. I honestly think this, like, I wanted to watch this, A, because Robert Pattinson, but B, because of Safdie brothers and because of just being a little bit more familiar with their work now. I was like, I had a friend of ours was like, you need to see Good Time if you haven't. Like, you're going to like it. And I was like, okay, I will. And so, sure enough. But I just wasn't anticipating loving it as much as I did.
All right, so my fourth and fifth pick here, this is where it gets a little tricky because there's still a lot of good movies. I'm going to pick The Zone of Interest next. So I have two Jonathan Glazer movies. I kind of talked about this, I think, on another podcast we did. This was nominated for Best Foreign Film and it won for Best Sound at the Oscars this past year. Jonathan Glazer gave the pro-Palestine speech that got removed from the internet, but yeah, this one, great use of sound. It's about a German family where the father is the commander at Auschwitz during the Holocaust, and just a really very interesting art piece of depicting what is evil and what is humanity and how do they intertwine, and can you be a human but also commit terrible evil atrocities, and then at what point are you separating yourself from the evil and not. It's just very compelling to think about, and I'll probably watch it many more times. I've already seen it twice, so Zone of Interest is my next pick.
Did you see that one?
I did not.
Yeah, highly recommend that one. Yeah.
Visually, though, they don't really show.
Yeah, that's the point.
Very, like,
they don't really show the actual, like, basically there's a big wall between the camp and their house, and you're always in their house or their backyard. So you're not really seeing the actual gas chambers that are killing people, but you hear it.
And you see the smoke.
And you see the smoke, and
you hear people screaming, and you hear the gunshots, and like they're just living their life like normal, and like
the way they filmed it was they had like all these cameras stationary, and they had the whole crew like off the premises, so it was really just the actors walking around the house with stationary cameras kind of set up. So it's very interesting how it was made, and I really liked it. So my next pick, I kind of have, 3 or 4. I mean, there's really a lot that I could pick here. But I think I'll ultimately pick Ex Machina. The funny story we had for this was we watched this at our old apartment after Deshaun Watson and Clemson beat Alabama in the college football championship, which Jordan doesn't care about or remember, but I remember, and we watched that, and then right after that, we were like, let's watch a movie, and we picked Ex Machina, but we had a lot of wine, and we were not ready for when that one lady takes her face off. Spoiler alert.
We started screaming.
But I really love Oscar Isaac's dancing, that one part. Alicia Vikander, this was like her breakout role. Yeah, now, 9 years later, it's kind of one of the first entries into the new age AI storytelling.
That's a good point.
Which feels real, I should say. I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of AI type movies before Ex Machina, but this was one of the first ones that was kind of grounded in its technology within the film, and then the way it ends kind of... Have you seen Ex Machina?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, the way it ends with, you questioning what the main characters were trying to do with what ultimately happened, and then do you support Alicia Vikander's character, or what's the greater consequences of what happens? But yeah, I think it's one of the better uses of humans versus technology in a confined, small-ish story.
Mm.
And then that was surpassed with Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning.
Yes. Yeah, Dead Reckoning kind of took the reins from Ex Machina when it comes to AI intervention.
Ex Machina walked so that
Tom Cruise could keep running.
Dead Reckoning can keep running.
That's funny. I didn't think about it like that.
All right, Jordan, your next pick.
All right. This one is a favorite of mine. I saw this in theaters 2015. And I think this was what sparked, I thought about it recently. This is really what sparked me understanding that like, oh, I like weird movies. And it's Yorgos Lanthimos' The Lobster. It's just so polarizing. Like, I know so many people that just hated this movie. And I'm like, that's like all of the complaints are all the reasons that I loved it. It's just like very stoic. It's very weird. It's very offbeat. It's very like dystopian, but without feeling sci-fi. You just are sort of like put into this world and you figure out the rules of it as you go through the story. Which I like. I don't like being spoon-fed like the voiceover of like, here's how this world works and now you can enter it. Like, it kind of feels like you are learning it as you go. But basically, single people are put into this like hotel room, you know, not a room, but like a hotel where you sort of have to like find a mate within a certain amount of time. And if you don't, you have to pick what animal you get to turn into, and you're banished to become that animal. Why does this happen? Who's making these rules? How does this scientifically work? No fucking clue. It's just how it works. And like, it's just really great. And like, Colin Farrell is so good. And like, I used to really be a person who was like, oh, I love Colin Firth. I don't love Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell looks like a rat. But like, this movie made me like realize like Colin Farrell.
It's like a lobster.
Yeah. Like, well, I just like really fell in love with his performance. And like, I ended up really loving later on, like the Banshees of Inisherin and like some other stuff that he's done. And so, but also like John C. Reilly is in this movie. And like, it's just like a weird movie. There's a lot of like really dry, like deadpan humor. But I loved it. It was really good. I remember seeing it in theaters and being like, oh, okay. I like some like interesting, weird stuff now. And my first introduction to like Yorgos as a director. So yeah.
Yeah, good pick. But yeah. It's kind of confusing because some of these directors, because I was thinking about when you mentioned The Lobster, you know, Poor Things is not A24, which just came out last year. And then there's some of these other, like, Jonathan Glazer's Sexy Beast wasn't A24. And then Alex Garland's Annihilation is not A24. But they're all kind of that similar branding almost.
Yeah.
So it's a little confusing. But
yeah,
trying to make a clarification there. But did you see The Lobster?
I saw it a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
I remember like the setup of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap. So I have After Sun, Under the Skin, Under the Silver Lake, The Zone of Interest, and Ex Machina. Jordan has Swiss Army Man, Moonlight, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Good Time, and The Lobster. And John has Lady Bird, Midsommar, First Reformed, and 20th Century Woman. And now John gets 2 picks in a row.
All right. Two very personal favorites. The first is going to be The Farewell by Lulu Wang.
I did see this one. I liked it.
Really, really fantastic movie. It's about like this family, and they know that the grandmother was diagnosed with cancer, and that she's it's like terminal cancer, and that she is going to die soon. But they don't tell her this because they don't want to like worry her. They don't want to like make it a big thing. So Aquafina, Aquafina and her parents who are living in America, they're gonna travel to China to kind of be with the family in this time. And the whole movie is like this family reconciling with what is happening while denying it at the same time, like kind of denying the grandmother, but also trying to give her like a great time, like while everybody's there. It's very, very heart-wrenching, but emotionally like just very insightful. There's like a moments where they have to sing karaoke, and it's supposed to be a happy thing, but they're all crying, and It's like very well like acted. Aquafina's like really really great in it. And what's really interesting is that I looked up Lulu Wang's like first movie, which was like a couple of years before this, which was Posthumous, and a fairly terrible movie. I did not like
I heard
it.
that one.
Um, and she like goes from that to what I think is like a masterpiece. So it kind of shows like directors they need to take chances, they need to make mistakes, and you got to keep going to make their masterpieces.
Yeah, I like that.
I haven't seen The Farewell, but I added it to my watch list.
Yeah, I remember the basic plot, and then Aquafina is really the main actor, and it's like her first dramatic role, kind of. So I thought she was really good.
Yeah. Next pick, also personal favorites. It's gonna be Bo Burnham's Eighth Grade. Really like this movie. Really like Bo Burnham. He's kind of special to me. His special inside was very fantastic. And yeah, it's a movie that I just think genuinely like depicts like all the anxieties that happen like in middle school and in eighth grade, and he captures it so well. The lead like actor is like really good for like a kid actor. I remember like she didn't get like the part in her high school like play that was going on at the same time, but she got to be in the movie. But yeah, it's like it's a very sweet movie, and kind of similar to like Lady Bird and the 20th Century Woman. They kind of make mistakes, but at the end, they kind of have this better understanding of who they are, and they're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Another one I haven't seen. I know
I've seen it. Yeah, I just remember a ton of anxiety that they make you feel for this girl when she's going to the pool party.
Yeah.
And how chaotically terrifying that can be to an eighth grader.
I really want him to make. There was rumors that he was going to make a Sesame Street movie, and like he was going to make songs for it, and I
that would be
really hope that happens.
I would watch. I would for sure watch.
All right, Jordan, your next pick.
Okay. I think if we skip over what's been picked already, because I would have picked, there's a couple more I would have picked, but they have been selected. I'm going to go with Zola.
Oh, yes.
Another very recent watch. It was like literally 2 or 3 days ago that I watched this. The best use of social media within a movie in the social media age that I've ever seen, where it doesn't feel contrived. It doesn't feel out of place or stuck in. It feels necessary. I think a lot of people complain about it in this movie because literally there is constantly, and I don't know if the mic picked that up or whatnot, but like,
yeah, their phones make noises a lot.
like they're constantly getting notifications, and like for that reason, that's why my phone is on silent all the time. But it's like it drives the plot forward in a way, and I feel like it's a very gritty look. I keep picking all the gritty ones, but like it's a gritty look at like what like sex workers go through, and like what that looks like for interpersonal relationships between sex workers, and like girls that are like, I'm a dancer, I'm not what you do. Like I'm a big fan of the Paul Verhoeven Showgirls movie, so this feels kind of like the like version including social media. But it's also really interesting that this movie was like derived from an actual real life Twitter thread about people that went through this. The only complaint I had was that the ending kind of felt anticlimactic. But if it's like adapted from real life events, it's kind of like that's what happened. So, but genuinely like a very enjoyable, a good time. Like I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I saw it a few years ago when it came out, and we watched it together the other day. And yeah, it was really good. And that was kind of what I mentioned to you when I first saw it, was like just the social media use, because it's not just this was created on social media and it's in the movie, but they actually use different types of social media to do certain things. And I think they do it really well, and they don't like hit you over the head with it necessarily. It's just like, this is how these people live because they're in the current time, and
Like they have to,
this is how you do things now.
you do it online. Yeah.
Okay, so I get 2 picks again. I'm going to do Beau is Afraid. So I hope you're afraid that I picked that. So real quick on Beau is Afraid, Ari Aster. So John picked Midsommar. I do like Midsommar more, but I'll take Beau and Joaquin. I actually haven't seen this a second time. I saw it in the theater with you and Alyssa, and I really liked it for it being just this wacky odyssey of an anxiety-induced man, and I just like the twists and turns it takes. I think it's very difficult to make just a generic white man feel like the world is completely against him, but this movie somehow makes it that. And every time you're like, where is this going? Why is it slowing down a little bit? Like, why is this thing happening? Why is this other thing not happening? It's like when the crazy moments happen, it's really good, and I'm excited to watch it again at some point. But I definitely think it's better than some of the movies that have been picked. But I will go with that one, and then my next one will be Uncut Gems.
Another anxiety-inducing movie.
Yes. This is another one I've only seen once, but when we watched Good Time the other night, it made me remember some of the parts of Uncut Gems, obviously directed by the Safdie brothers after they did Good Time with Adam Sandler. I remember when I watched it for the first time, the thing that struck me was how real and honest the sports gambling aspect of it was, and how they actually got Kevin Garnett to be in the movie, and they actually showed the actual footage of the actual game that they're talking about. And one of the things that pisses me off about movies sometimes is when they're like, we're going to do sports in this movie, but they have completely generic teams, no actual graphics, no actual people. Like, it's just a made up thing just so that they can go to the football game or whatever. But like, this movie is like, no, we're betting on the Boston Celtics with Kevin Garnett, and he has to get this many points or we lose, and Adam Sandler's in trouble. And I really like the opening where they actually show where this gym was found in Africa and what like the actual process of acquiring such a gym. Like, people die basically because it's like so difficult to get, and it's but I think probably one of Adam Sandler's best performances. I know he's really good in Punch Drunk Love, which is not A24, so we can't pick that. But I think Uncut Gems is definitely worth a selection.
It's like serious role for Adam Sandler, A24. Like, you know, aside from Punch Drunk Love.
Kind of similar with Robert Pattinson, kind of taking somebody who professionally at that point was not really taken as seriously for different reasons, of course.
Yeah.
But after which, they kind of had these like entirely like new careers open up for like new opportunities. Very interesting. Something about before we move on, like something about Beau is Afraid. There's a cartoon logic to that movie that I just love so much. Like with the opening of
the first act.
The first act, when the worst thing in the world is like all these people being in his apartment.
Yeah.
And despite like any like without any like logic, like they all just go in, they ruin everything, and it's a very funny movie.
It's almost funny, and then there's parts where you're laughing, and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't be laughing anymore. Yeah. Like, it suddenly gets
it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be
serious.
anxious right now, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and going back to that, I like the part with Holly from The Office, Amy Ryan, and Nathan Lane. Just that whole sequence, and they have their son is like got PTSD and thinks he's like still in war. But yeah, there's that one shot where Joaquin Phoenix or Bo takes a hit off of some drug in the car, and like the whole atmosphere of the actual film like
changes to match
drastically. Yeah, it's really crazy how that's done, and I wanted to shout that out. Okay, so now it's Jordan. This is her second to last pick. And then we have 2 for John, then Jordan again, and then I have the very, very last pick.
Okay. I think you might be surprised by my next pick because we literally watched it today. I watched it for the first time today. And it's The Florida Project. Yeah, another one that made me cry. I liked it so much that, I mean, I'm a huge Willem Dafoe fan, but it's another good example of like seedy lifestyle, but in this like beautiful Technicolor type of way. It's like the innocence of childhood, and like, it's funny because I've read so many reviews where people are like, those little kids are pieces of shit. And then I've read other reviews where people are like, I loved these little kids. And I'm like, if you were not that little kid, like, you just don't understand it. Like, if you weren't ever like just like a snot-nosed kid like that, like, you might not totally get it. But like, for anybody else who's like an ex-snot-nosed kid, like, you just get it, where you're like, the scene where they're like standing and like looking out at the lady that's sunbathing and she's topless, and they're like, boobies, 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 and just like yelling at her, like, so much of it.
Spit on that lady's car at the beginning.
Yeah, like, you do what you see. And so if you see other kids doing stupid stuff, or you see your parents or other people's parents doing stupid stuff, you're like, well, it's okay because somebody else has done it. And like, you just don't know. And like, you're still pretty innocent, like, as a child. And I didn't totally love the ending, but other than that, like, a very, very good film. Really, really kind of like heart-wrenching in a lot of parts. And like, I have a hard time with like children actors in movies because it's so hard for me to not see them as acting, because it's very hard for a child to just be a good actor. But a lot of this felt like they were ad-libbing.
Yeah, I think the setting was really well done, like unique enough and confined enough to where it's more understandable that they're just kids living in this hotel. And I really like the different locations with the different colors. Like, there's that orange world, and then the hotel is all purple, and they're like right outside Disney World. This very interesting like architecture part where like they show the kids walking around different cool places.
Yeah. I also think it's like very realistic for like impoverished families to be like just motel hopping in Florida. Like, that's very normal, and people do that in lots of cities. But it was interesting to see it in the backdrop of like, what's it like through the eyes of like a child that is in that situation where that's all they know and they don't think anything different of it. So yeah,
I think it kind of falls into this A24 kind of bucket where it's like, you have these movies where it's like everyday normal type people doing normal type things, or they're just growing up, or it's like giving these weirdo directors anything they want to do, like Beau's Afraid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All right, John, your last 2 picks.
All right, last 2. First up is going to be The Vivitch, the first David Eggers movie. Eggers has become a director that I've really enjoyed, like, seeing him, you know, from the very starts to like all of his movies coming afterwards. Has Anya Taylor-Joy in like one of her first like movie performances. Really, really great. All of the like supporting actors are great as well. And it's a movie that you can definitely like tell that like the budget was low, but you can tell it for like in like good ways, like seeing like how they made up for all that. So like, for instance, there are like several shots in the movie where it's just like pointing the camera to the woods, and it's the scariest special effects that they could ever have hoped for. Because there's like this witch that's like in the woods, and there's this demonic goat that's running around as well. So like I really appreciate the craft that it took to kind of make up for like the low budgets, but still make like a very very scary movie. And it's like all like the sets so like are fantastic, costuming, like it really, it's one of those movies where it's set in like olden times and it really feels old. Like it doesn't feel like costume time. Like it, like all like the supporting actors also like do a great job at uh having like that old feel. So really like that movie. And you know what? For the last movie, I'll do Civil War.
Nice.
All right.
Movie that we saw a few hours ago.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about. I don't know if we'll do a Civil War specific episode, but me and Jordan were thinking of maybe doing a Kirsten Dunst episode at some point. But yeah, me and John, we just saw Civil War today, so that was kind of the reason we were like, let's do an A24 draft. So you give us your little take on Civil War.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. As we were kind of talking about before, I think it is a really great action movie. It's like sets up all of its characters really well. Like everybody's like well acted. They have their own kind of unique perspective. And then it's just like set piece after set piece, like these little vignettes of very intense action, of like really great visuals. And I think that just kind of progressively gets more crazy, more intense as the movie goes on. And you know, it follows these like photojournalists like during this war, and I really appreciate like how invested it is in like photojournalism as a career, like as a profession. And we get like all of the great like process of like what photojournalists do, the importance of like getting a good shot, and throughout the movie, as they're like taking these pictures, the movie will kind of cut those pictures into the movie for a couple of seconds, and it creates like a really great feel, and there's like a focus on the visuals that I really appreciated.
Yeah, I think another thing besides the visuals was the sound, and how the sound would cut out during parts, and you would just hear silence and mixed with the camera shots or clicking noises of the photos being taken. Yeah, I think when you make a movie like this, there's going to be people who are upset when you don't spoon feed them the politics, but I think ultimately it's better that they didn't really go over the politics too much, because ultimately it's just how journalism works in a wartime, and just the setting is near future America. So I think if they went all in on saying the red states did this or the blue states did this, or input real life politicians, it would have been a big mess. So I think ultimately they did the right thing by kind of being
ambiguous.
Yeah, and I think it's still, you can watch this movie and you don't really need the politics. You can understand the difficulties of war and being a journalist in war, and how you're basically every day, putting your life on the line just to put out information to the mass people. So yeah, I really liked it. I'm definitely eager to see it again.
Cool.
And that goes to your last pick, Jordan.
This is difficult because I technically, if I were to rank my A24 movies, there's one that slightly edges out another. But like in this very moment in time, I would actually rather go with the second one on that list.
Do that.
It's Pearl.
Oh, that was maybe my pick.
So I liked X a lot, which is technically like the first one in this soon-to-be trilogy of movies with Mia Goth. But Pearl specifically is just, I prefer it. out of the two, and it's the second one. I mean, and generally speaking, if you like don't totally know what it's about, it basically is like X is talking about a girl who is trying to get big in the adult film industry, and she
in the 70s.
In the 70s, yeah. And so Pearl is sort of like the prequel, if you will, to that same type of persona of just a girl who wants stardom at any cost. And is like sort of like fame obsessed in like a very weird way. And I think this is like in the 50s, 40s, 50s.
30s.
I'm sorry, 30s. But it's very like stylized and very like old-fashioned retro feeling. It's also like responsible for like a lot of like the very memeable like, please, I'm a star, like,
oh yeah, I mean,
little sound
it's one of the
bites.
best performances.
She's
sure.
incredible. I'm so excited for the third one in the series, which is set in the 80s, called Maxine, that will come out hopefully this year.
Yeah, this summer, I think.
I'm very excited for that one. But I love a good like bad main character that's like it's both like a morally gray / bad main character. It's also like a good for her type of movie. It's also like a female rage type of movie, which is just I love to see stuff like that. It's fun to see stuff like that. It's easy to find like male rage movies, but it's very rare that you can find a very good like, oh, she crazy type of movie.
Yeah, John, have you seen X or Pearl?
I have not, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's on my watch list.
They're good.
Yeah, I agree. I think Pearl's a little bit better than X because Mia Goth really goes all out, and
The credits,
yeah,
it's like psychotic. Like it doesn't give anything away, but like the credits I think this is the credits of Pearl, not X, but it's literally just Mia Goth holding a smile through the entire credits.
Pearl.
Oh wow.
And you can tell it's
There's
hurting,
also, like-
and she's crying, and like she's really trying. Like it just is so incredibly unsettling.
There's also like the 5 to 8 minute sequence where she's screaming and the camera doesn't move and she doesn't take a break. It's crazy.
She's insane. Like she's a powerhouse.
Okay, so the 24th pick in the A24 2024 draft belongs to me, and this is where it gets even more tricky because it's really just about what movie I want to talk about for 2 minutes because there's a lot of good choices. We could maybe do a brief honorable mentions, but you know, it's tough. I'm going to pick The Lighthouse. Because of Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, and it's similar to The Witch, directed by Robert Eggers. So I feel like it's quintessential A24. This one is just like, it's black and white. It's Willem Dafoe is in a lighthouse, and Robert Pattinson, it's like in the 1800s. And Robert Pattinson comes to the lighthouse, and they have to like stay there for an extended amount of time. And they basically go crazy, but they're always talking in like sailory 1800s language that doesn't make any sense. And if you don't use subtitles for this movie, you're going to be completely lost. But I really like the setting, the way it's shot, the acting. I mean, when you have two actors in a small space going back and forth, it's always pretty good, but these are really good actors. And I really wanted to bring it home with another Robert Eggers movie, another Willem Dafoe movie, and another Robert Pattinson movie to kind of go along with how A24 has really dominated the past 8+ years, and I really like our picks.
That's a solid list.
What do y'all think about The Lighthouse? Have you seen that, John?
I've seen it.
What do you think?
I really love Willem Dafoe going crazy. That's what he's best at.
And
Yeah.
just like getting drunk. It's
Yeah,
really
they're just
weird.
constantly
Yeah.
getting drunk. It's so funny.
It's also really weird whenever you see two actors that are like very well known, like joining forces for the first time, where you're like, you're kind of not from the same type of movies as this person. Like, that's always very interesting, and they did a very good job.
All right, so just to recap. So Sam's picks: After Sun, Under the Skin, Under the Silver Lake, The Zone of Interest, Ex Machina, Beau is Afraid, Uncut Gems, and The Lighthouse. Jordan picks Swiss Army Man, Moonlight, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Good Time, The Lobster, Zola, The Florida Project, and Pearl. And John picked Lady Bird, Midsommar, First Reformed, 20th Century Woman, The Farewell, 8th Grade, The Witch, and Civil War.
A solid list.
Yeah. I think we did really well. So do y'all have any honorable mentions that you were like, I almost picked this, but...
I did.
We don't have to do all 70 movies and talk about them, but...
I would say a few that I sadly couldn't mention. Hereditary, I almost put as my last one, but I was just feeling Pearl a little bit more. Hereditary is just hard to watch.
Yeah, Hereditary is one where, like, I feel like when you first see it, it's really good. I just feel like I just haven't revisited it because...
I don't really have a desire to.
Yeah, once you know what happens, it's still really good. I'm not going to say it's not good. I just don't know if it's rewatchable, like Midsommar, for example.
Toni Collette
That's
gives a great performance.
She's really, really good.
That's
really.
like,
there was a talk that she might get nominated for an Oscar that year.
I'm surprised she wasn't.
Should have, yeah.
It's pretty like culturally significant. Like people know her as that. And then my other two that like I could have mentioned but I didn't would have been Priscilla was very, very good. And then we recently also saw Marcel the Shell, which I liked a lot. Didn't quite make the cut for me.
Yeah, Marcel the Shell, it took me a minute to get into it because I was like, what is happening? I wasn't sure if I liked it at the very beginning, but then I got into it and I was like, okay, no, this is good. Like, there's craft.
By the end of it, I was crying for an anthropomorphic shell.
A few honorable mentions for me. I almost picked Room with Brie Larson, Minari. I really like this movie called The Humans. And yeah, Past Lives should get a shout out. That was Best Picture nominated last year, but ultimately I don't think it's as good as some people think it is, but it's still a good movie. And then yeah, X, Hereditary, Bodies, 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 I think should get a shout out. And yeah, what about you, John?
I was going to mention Hereditary as well. Let's see. I watched White Noise, Noah Baumbach's movie.
Oh yeah, that's one of the ones I wasn't able to see.
It's really interesting.
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver, Greta Gerwig, a lot of similarities between my other picks. It's really interesting. Like I read the book, and the book is really wild, and so I really appreciate Baumbach trying to incorporate all these like weird things. It definitely has like a very unique tone throughout, and I really like Baumbach. And it's kind of interesting to see him do something that he doesn't normally do, like more of like a, well, I don't know. It's kind of a different subject matter for him. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, John. We really appreciate it. We thought about you and thinking about A24 movies for some reason, and we saw Civil War, so I just thought it all made sense to have you on for this. So thank you for coming.
Absolutely happy to be here. Yeah, very, very fun. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for listening.
Bye.